Relax, allow your body to sink deeper. Let your breath slow, even softly. Imagine yourself in a quiet place, safe, where a gentle breeze brushes your skin and faint light dances in the darkness. Our story tonight begins in a realm between waking and dreaming, in a world unseen by most. Where twilight lingers eternally, there is a hidden library unlike any you're familiar with. No walls enclose it, no doors guarded, only a circle of soft, glowing lamps that drift among silent stacks of hovering books. Each lamp is pale and warm, like captured starshine, tethered to nothing yet floating effortlessly. They sway as if holding secrets of wind and moth light. You may feel the hush pressing gently in your ears, as though the space around you listens as intently as you do. Inhale, feel the soothing warmth of lamp glow drift across your shoulders. Exhale, rest deeper. Enveloped in soft radiance, a weary traveler enters this quiet sanctuary, her footsteps silent on moss-soft ground. She sees the drifting volumes, their pages flickering faintly, each one containing a single dream waiting to be read aloud. The moment she breathes in that stillness, the air around her becomes as gentle as honey. She moves slowly, eyes softening. Each lamp-shrouded book hums with memory and hope. Her fingertips brush past one, trailing halos of dust motes that drift like spectral fireflies. Then she reaches for a particularly pale lamp. Its glow pulses softly. The book floats closer, opening itself of its own accord. She reads only the title, A Dream of Hidden Gardens, and as she does, the world begins to shift. Blue petals unfurl at her feet. A cool breeze carries the scent of jasmine. Mossy paths unfurl in moonlight. The library around her fades into the dream it contains. Birds whisper songs in the canopy above. Lanterns drift through branches while petals fall like soft snow. Your breath follows that gentle breeze. And out, you are there, walking under blooming boughs. The petals brush your cheeks. Fireflies rise in soft arcs. Peace flows in each step, soft, unhurried. And the dream is everywhere you look, shimmering in every leaf, every breath, guiding you deeper into tranquility. The traveler's footsteps echoed faintly against the smooth stone floor, but even the echoes here seemed soft and wrapped in velvet silence. They paused to take in the strange scene, hundreds, perhaps thousands, of glowing books gently drifting in the air. Each one hovered at a different height, swaying slightly as though moved by a breeze too delicate to feel. The lamps of the library, yet not lamps at all, but stories, dreams preserved in pages that shimmered with gold and pale silver. The traveler reached out a tentative hand, fingers brushing against the cover of a nearby book. At the touch, it warmed like a cup of tea held on a chilly evening. A faint pulse of light rippled across the surface, and the traveler drew in a slow breath, sensing something awakening inside the story itself. They lowered themselves onto a nearby cushioned seat, one that seemed to have been placed here just for them. It was covered in soft velvet the color of midnight, and when they sank into it, the cushions molded perfectly to the curves of their body, cradling them in comfort. The library, they thought, wanted them to rest. All around, the floating books shifted almost imperceptibly, forming subtle spirals in the air, as though circling in anticipation. Somewhere far above, that great dome of glass revealed a sky full of deep indigo and stars scattered like delicate seeds. And yet, the stars outside seemed to wink in perfect harmony with the drifting lamps inside, as though the dreams in the heavens spoke in some secret code. A warm, golden glow came from a single nearby book. It floated closer on its own, hovering just above the traveler's lap. The cover bore no title, no name, only a faint engraving of a feather, curled as if caught mid-fall. The traveler placed their hands gently on either side of it. Deep, slow breath escaped their lips, and they let their eyelids droop half-closed, feeling the gentle warmth seep into their palms. The moment they opened the book, the air seemed to shift. First came the sound of leaves, soft, rhythmic, like the pages of a book being turned somewhere far away. Then came the scent of blooming jasmine, curling into the still air of the library. The words on the page began to glow, each letter drifting upward like a tiny firefly until they rose above the book entirely, hovering in the air. And then the dream began to weave itself into reality. The cushioned seat beneath the traveler remained, but the floor had changed, no longer stone, but a carpet of soft, mossy grass. The air was warmer now, the scent of jasmine mingling with the sweet aroma of honeysuckle. Forest surrounded them, but the trees were not ordinary trees. The leaves were made of glass, and they chimed softly whenever a breeze passed through. Moonlight slipped between their branches, scattering shards of pale silver light across the ground. The entire forest seemed alive not just with movement, but with a quiet, breathing stillness. The traveler looked down at their hands, still holding the glowing book, and saw that the words continued to drift upward as each one rose into the sky. It transformed into a tiny lamp, soft, warm, weightless until the branches above became dotted with them. Somewhere in the distance, Brook murmured, its voice blending with the chime of the glass leaves. The traveler's heart slowed, matching the gentle rhythm of the water. They felt safe here. Wrapped in the dream's embrace, from behind a tree, a small figure emerged barefoot. The hair the color of autumn leaves and eyes like melted gold. They carried a lantern of their own, though it seemed unnecessary in this glowing place. The figure smiled, their expression calm and knowing, as though they had been expecting the traveler all along. Open one of the quiet dreams, they said softly, their voices smooth as falling rain. These are the ones that linger long after you wake. The traveler nodded, though they weren't entirely sure why. Words felt unnecessary here, as though meaning could be shared in silence. The figure gestured for them to follow, and together they walked toward the brook, each step sinking lightly into the moss. The glass leaves above shifted with the breeze, sending ripples of music through the forest, and all the while, the floating lamps born from the book's drifting words followed them like a trail of gentle stars. The traveler's fingers traced the air just beneath one of the floating lamps, close enough to feel the soft hum that pulsed within its glow. The light here wasn't harsh, nor bright enough to dazzle. It was the sort of glow you'd expect to see if a candle had learned how to float and dream at the same time. They leaned closer, letting the faint warmth kiss their cheek. A scent like fresh rain on old paper drifted past their nose. It reminded them of sitting beside an open window after a storm, watching the clouds dissolve in the distance. In the hush, the traveler noticed something peculiar. The lamp swayed as if moved by a breeze, yet there was no wind. It was as though the dreams inside each one were breathing slowly, gently. A soft whisper reached their ears. It wasn't the kind of whisper meant to be heard. It was a thought, a memory, a fragment of a world asking to be remembered. Without realizing it, the traveler's hand rose, brushing against the glassy surface of the lamp. At once, the light deepened in color, glowing into rich golds and blues. A ripple passed through the air like a pebble dropped into still water, and then the library began to fade. The walls grew transparent, revealing a night sky stretched endlessly around them. The books that once drifted nearby now hovered against the stars, their pages turning as if caught in invisible currents. The traveler took a slow breath. The air here was cool, fresh, carrying with it the taste of snowmelt and pine. They felt the weight of the earth fall away beneath their feet, and then a voice spoke low and serene. You have opened the dream of the willow bridge. They turned, searching for the speaker, but found only a narrow path of light stretching out ahead. A bridge not made of stone or wood, but of woven willow branches glowing faintly under the moon's tender gaze. The traveler stepped forward. The bridge gave a soft creak, not in warning, but in welcome, like the sigh of an old friend who had been waiting far too long. Below, there was no river, only an endless, gentle mist, rolling and folding like a blanket being tucked around the world. They began to walk, each step in rhythm with the slow beat of their heart. Somewhere far away, they could hear water dripping, a slow, soothing plink, plink, plink. The sound echoed warmly, like the heart of a home long forgotten. Halfway across the bridge, they noticed tiny motes of light drifting upward from the mist. They danced lazily, spiraling past their knees, then their shoulders, before floating off into the night sky. The traveler paused, watching one pass close to their face. Inside the glowing sphere, they thought they saw a memory. A little girl in a red scarf, laughing as she ran through a field of tall grass. Her hands clutched a basket, and inside an apple, still wet from the rain. The image faded as the mote drifted away, but the warmth of it lingered, blooming quietly in the traveler's chest. The bridge carried them onward until, at last, it ended at the threshold of a small wooden door, round at the top, carved with curling vines and tiny stars. It stood alone in the mist, waiting, and then the library began to fade. The walls grew transparent, revealing a night sky stretched endlessly around them. The books that once drifted nearby now hovered against the stars, their pages turning as if caught in invisible currents. The traveler took a slow breath. The air here was cool, fresh, carrying with it the taste of snowmelt and pine. They felt the weight of the earth fall away beneath their feet, and then a voice spoke low and serene. You have opened the dream of the willow bridge. stone or wood, but a woven willow branches glowing faintly under the moon's tender gaze. The traveler stepped forward. The bridge gave a soft creak, not in warning, but in welcome, like the sigh of an old friend who had been waiting far too long. Below, there was no river, only an endless, gentle mist, rolling and folding like a blanket being tucked around the world. They began to walk, each step in rhythm with the slow beat of their heart. Somewhere far away, they could hear water dripping, a slow, soothing plink, plink, plink. The sound echoed warmly, like the heart of a home long forgotten. Halfway across the bridge, they noticed tiny motes of light drifting upward from the mist. They danced lazily, spiraling past their knees, then their shoulders, before floating off into the night sky. The traveler paused, watching one pass close to their face. Inside the glowing sphere, they thought they saw a memory. Little girl in a red scarf laughing as she ran through a field of tall grass. Her hands clutched a basket, and inside an apple still wet from the rain. The image faded as the mote drifted away, but the warmth of it lingered, glowing quietly in the traveler's chest. The bridge carried them onward until, at last, it ended at the threshold of a small wooden door, round at the top, carved with curling vines and tiny stars. It stood alone in the mist, waiting. The traveler placed a hand on the door. It was warm, as though the sunlight from another day was stored within the grain of its wood. When they pushed it open, a low, comforting glow spilled out, the kind of light you'd expect from a fire that has been burning quietly for hours, content to simply keep the room warm. They stepped inside. The traveler's fingers trailed through the air, brushing against the nearest drifting book. It feels warm to the touch, almost like the soft heat of sunlight after rain. It hums faintly, a sound you can feel in your fingertips rather than hear with your ears. And as they draw it closer, the glow deepens, like a lantern being turned up in the night. They open the cover, and the air ripples. At first, it's just a shimmer, like heat waves rising from a road in summer. But then the light spills out, and the library begins to fade. The traveler feels their feet lifting, not as though they are flying, but as if the floor beneath them has decided to drift away, and the air is now their gentle path. A meadow unfurls below, the grass swaying in a rhythm so slow and soothing, it seems to match the listener's own breathing. The scent is sweet, something between wild honey and fresh rain, and in the distance, the sound of a brook, bubbling softly as if it has been whispering the same quiet song for centuries. The dream has begun. In this dream, the sky is never dark, but never quite day either. It's a soft twilight, painted in the colors of faded lilac and gold. The traveler looks around, and each flower in the meadow seems to turn its head toward them, as though it has been waiting for their arrival. The drifting lamps from the library, they are here too, only now, instead of pages, each light reveals a scene suspended in its glow. A child laughing as they chase bubbles, an old sailor leaning against a rail, eyes closed as the sea hums its lullaby. A musician asleep beside a half-finished song, the melody still shimmering in the air above their head. The traveler walks among them slowly, their steps falling into the same gentle pace you're breathing now. One step, out. The wind moves with them, and you can almost feel it brushing your cheek like the softest silk ribbon drifting through the night. There is no rush here, no need to choose which dream to open first. The meadow will wait, the lights will wait. Time itself seems to have curled up somewhere nearby, taking a nap. The traveler pauses by a lamp that glows the color of amber honey. They reach out, and as their palm rests against the warm glass of light, you can feel the faint hum grow deeper, like a voice you've known forever, a voice that feels like home. The dream inside begins to speak. It says, this is a dream of rest. It belongs to the weary, to the traveler who has carried too much for too long. Step inside and let the weight slip away. The traveler steps forward. The air inside the library seemed to hum, a low and velvety sound, as if the walls themselves were singing a lullaby older than time. The traveler let the warmth wash over them, allowing their shoulders to drop further, and the muscles of the neck to release their hold. The heart slowed, the rhythm steady, calm, and unhurried. Softly, they wandered deeper, each step almost floating, weightless in the cushion of the dream light. The floating lamps seemed to guide the way, drifting gently ahead, their faint glow touching the traveler's cheeks with a silken warmth. One drifted close enough to see its contents. Inside, suspended in a swirl of pale light, was an image of metal stretching beyond sight, bathed in the soft pink glow of dawn. The traveler could almost smell the air from within the lamp, fresh, page turning, it opened. The dream poured out not in a rush, but in a gentle swirling, unfurling like ribbons of mist curling around their body. The traveler's vision shifted, the walls of the library faded, and they found themselves standing in the meadow they had glimpsed. The grass was tall and soft, bending in the wind like 1,000 gentle boughs. Tiny white petals drifted through the air, carried from unseen flowers by the same wind that whispered through the earth. Somewhere nearby, Brooke murmured a delicate, continuous sound, like a friendly voice speaking in a language older than memory. They took a step, the grass brushing their shoes. The ground beneath was warm, as though the sun had been shining there for hours. Even though the morning light was just breaking the horizon, above, the sky was painted with delicate gradients beach interrose into the softest gold. Every so often, a bird song rose and fell, unhurried and solitary, as though it knew there was no need to fill the silence, only to let the quiet hold you. The traveler knelt, running their fingers over a patch of tiny blue flowers. Petals felt cool and smooth, and when they leaned closer, a faint fragrance of fresh rain drifted up to meet them. Somewhere deeper in the meadow, a shape moved a figure. The traveler hesitated, not out of fear, but in the way one pauses before stepping into a moment too delicate to disturb. The figure was small, cloaked in a robe that shimmered faintly in the dawn light, as though it were woven from the air itself. When it turned, the traveler saw a face not entirely human, but not entirely other. Its features were softened by something ageless, eyes like polished amber, glowing faintly from within. The figure spoke, and though the lips moved, the traveler heard the words directly in their mind. You have opened a dream. You may walk it if you wish, but be gentle, for dreams remember kindness. The traveler bowed their head slightly, an instinct born of respect, and began to walk beside the figure. As they moved, the meadow unfolded like an endless map, each turn revealing something new. That grove of slender white trees, their trunks smooth as glass, leaves the color of pale silver coins. A low hill where the grass shifted colors with each breeze emerald, then gold, then violet. The figure said little, but when they did, the words seemed to sink into the heart more than the ear. Every lamp in the library holds a dream, they said, their voice calm as still water. Some are small, some are vast, some belong to those who will never remember them, and some belong to you. The traveler thought about this as they walked, feeling the ground change beneath their feet, the grass giving way to a path of smooth, pale stones. The stones led them to the brook they had heard earlier. It was clearer than any water they had seen, so pure that the pebbles beneath gleamed as though lit from within. The figure gestured for them to kneel, and they did. The water rippled, and a reflection appeared, not their own, but something different. Version of themselves, younger, perhaps, or older. It was hard to tell. The reflected self smiled softly, as if to say, I've been here before. The traveler reached a hand toward the reflection, and as their fingers brushed the surface, the water shimmered and they were back in the library. The lamp floated in front of them, dim now, as though it had given away the heart of its light. All around, the other lamps drifted slowly, as though breathing in unison. Somewhere, far above, the traveler thought they saw the faint outline of a staircase spiraling upward into the shadows. And though the room was vast, the air still felt close, warm, safe. The traveler exhaled slowly, the breath leaving them like a quiet tide pulling away from the shore. They were ready to open. Another dream. The traveler let their fingertips brush against the spines of the hovering books, each one swaying ever so slightly as if acknowledging the touch. The glow that emanated from them was not harsh or glaring. It was soft and warm, like candlelight diffused through silk. And within that glow, the faintest flicker of movement, like a heartbeat, or perhaps the shifting of clouds. He took a step deeper into the library, and the silence here was not empty. It was alive, the kind of silence that makes you feel as though something is listening, not with ears, but with presence. Outside, he could just faintly hear the rustle of leaves beyond the glass walls. Somewhere far off, a faint stream murmured its endless lullaby. His eyes settled on one particular lamp book that floated lower than the rest, as if inviting him. Its cover was deep blue, the color of twilight after the last ray of sun has gone. The title was written in silver letters that shimmered only when he moved, but no matter how he angled himself, he could never quite read it in full. It felt as though the book was shy, or perhaps secretive. He reached out. The moment his hand touched the cover, a soft breeze moved through the library, carrying with it the scent of lavender and distant rain. The book gave a subtle hum, a note so low and gentle that it seemed to bypass his ears entirely and speak directly to the space inside his chest. When he opened it, the pages were not paper at all. They were sheets of light, unfolding in ripples like water, and with each ripple an image appeared, faint at first, then clearer, a field dot moonlit, a single lantern swaying gently from the branch of an old tree, and in the shadow beneath the tree a figure, a child, barefoot, chasing fireflies. Traveler blinked because when he lifted his eyes from the page, the library had changed. The marble floor was gone, replaced by soft grass that gave under his weight. Above him, the ceiling had dissolved into a sky bricked with stars. The hovering books still floated around him, but now they hung among tree branches like fruit from some celestial orchard. He could hear the soft pad of the child's feet on the grass, the laughter barely above a whisper. The air was warm, but with the kind of warmth that comes only from summer nights when the earth has held on to the day as sun and now releases it gently like a sigh. The child paused to look at him, not startled, not afraid, just curious, as though meeting someone they had always known but forgotten for a time. The fireflies gathered in a small glowing cloud round the child's head, their light mingling with the stars above until it was impossible to tell where earth ended and sky began. "Will you help me find it?" the child asked. The traveler's voice felt slow, heavy, as though shaped from the same softness as the dream around him. "Fine. What?" The child smiled, not the quick, fleeting smile of waking life, but a lingering, patient one. "The lantern that holds my dream." And so, together, they walked across the field, the grass whispering under their steps. The floating lamps from the library had followed, drifting in a gentle arc overhead like a constellation rearranging itself. Some swayed closer, their glow brushing against the traveler's cheek, filling him with sudden, inexplicable memories that were not his own. A man kneeling in a garden at dawn, planting seeds. A woman standing at the edge of the sea, the wind lifting her hair. An old musician playing a song that no one else remembered. Each lamp held a fragment of someone's heart, and as they passed, the traveler realized that to touch one was to feel an entire lifetime, condensed into a single heartbeat. But the child seemed to know exactly which one they were seeking. Through a small thicket where the shadows deepened and the air grew cooler, they came to a quiet pond. Its surface mirrored the night sky so perfectly that it felt as though they stood at the edge of the universe. The only movement was the faint ripple caused by the gentle sway of a lantern that hung low over the water. "That's the one," the child whispered. The lantern was unlike the others. It did not glow gold or white, but a deep, calming green, like moss after rain. Its light pulsed slowly in rhythm with the traveler's breathing. The child reached out, but their small fingers passed through the lantern as though it were made of mist. They turned to the traveler. "You have to open it for me." The traveler nodded, though he did not understand why. As his hands closed around the lantern, a warm weight settled into his palms, not heavy, but grounding like holding a cup of tea on a winter's morning. The glow grew brighter for a moment, then softened, revealing within its light a single feather white with edges dipped in gold. The moment he touched it, the dream shifted again. They were no longer by the pond. They were standing in the middle of a forest where every leaf glimmered faintly, and the air was so still it felt like a held breath. Somewhere deep among the trees, a soft music began to play, not from any instrument the traveler knew, but something older, as if the forest itself was singing. The child stepped forward, holding the feather close. "Remember," they said, their voice softer than the breeze. "It's mine." The traveler wanted to ask what the dream meant, or how it had been lost, but he found the words dissolving before they could form. Because here, in this quiet space between waking and sleeping, questions seemed less important than simply being present. They walked together until the trees opened up into a small clearing. There, the child placed the feather on a stone, and the ground around it shimmered as though made of moonlight. The forest exhaled, and the sound was almost like a lullaby. The traveler felt his eyes grow heavy, and he realized perhaps this was how dreams returned to those who had lost them, not with noise or urgency, but with gentleness. The library's lamps drifted above once more, their light dimming just enough to coax the mind toward rest. And somewhere far away, he could hear the first gentle crackle of a hearth fire, as if a story had just ended, and yet another waited to be told. The traveler moved deeper into the winding corridors of the library, the air cool and fragrant with the faintest scent of lavender and parchment. The floating lamps pulsed softly, as if each one breathed in rhythm with the quiet heartbeat of the place. Some drifted close enough that their glow brushed against the traveler's cheek, swayed far overhead like distant stars in a private night sky. As the traveler walked, the carpet beneath their feet grew softer and thicker, muffling even the smallest sound. In that silence, they began to notice another layer of the library's magic, a low hum, almost imperceptible, vibrating in the chest more than in the ears. It was the sound of countless dreams murmuring at once, a chorus of half-formed stories waiting for a reader to bring them to life. They reached out to one lamp, a warm hemisphere, and felt it lower into their palm as though it had been expecting them. The instant their fingers closed around it, the hum deepened and the world seemed to tilt slightly. They could feel the weight of the dream inside, not heavy like stone, but heavy like meaning. The lamp's glow swirled, revealing inside it an image, a small wooden boat adrift on an endless silver sea. The traveler's lips parted as they whispered the first words printed across the lamp's surface, and the library melted away. They stood now at the edge of that silver ocean. The sky was a pale gradient from rose to lavender, and the air carried a calm saltiness, a breeze that kissed the skin coolly. The waves moved in slow, rhythmic swells, kind that make the whole body relax as you watch them, breath unconsciously matching their rise and fall. The boat was waiting, the same one they had seen within the lamp, its hull polished smooth by years of gentle travel, a single lantern hanging at the bow. The travelers stepped inside, feeling the boat rock in greeting, and lowered themselves onto the cushioned seat without a push. Without a sail, the boat began to drift forward, guided by something unseen. They let their fingertips trail in the cool water, drawing slow circles. The surface shimmered as though it were alive with light, each droplet catching and holding a fragment of the sky's color. The ocean made no crashing sound here, only a deep, continuous hush. Like a lullaby older than time, the following morning, Elias awoke to a village buzzing with unease. Fishermen reported tides that did not match the almanac. The baker's wife claimed she had dreamt for what felt like days, only to wake before dawn. Even the gulls wheeled slower in the sky, their cries elongated as if stretched by unseen fingers. Elias sat at his workbench, the silver watch resting in its velvet pouch. His fingers hovered above it, torn between pride and dread. He knew the mechanism now better than his own heartbeat knew the gear that could stop the moon scrawl entirely, the pen that could hasten it. But he also knew the cost. The balance of time was not his alone to keep. That night, the villagers gathered in the tavern, whispering about the strange hours. Some asked for longer nights, more time to rest, to dream. Others feared the unnatural changes, calling it an omen. Old Moran, the widow with eyes like storm clouds, approached Elias quietly. "You hold it, don't you?" she said. Elias did not answer, but her gaze told him she needed none. "The moon's rhythm keeps our world in step," she continued. "Tinker with it too much, and you'll find yourself dancing alone." Her words lingered as Elias returned home. The watch ticked softly in the dim room, each beat a temptation. He thought of the comfort it could bring to the weary, the peace it could grant the troubled. But he also saw the danger of village lulled into endless night, forgetting the work of the day. As midnight approached, Elias stepped outside. The sea glimmered under a bloated, lingering moon. In the distance, waves hesitated before touching the shore, as if the ocean itself waited for his command. He lifted the watch. One turn and the moon would remain still. Another and the dawn would come. He closed his eyes, breathed in the salt air, and made his choice. Under the softened glow of candlelight, Elric's trembling hands adjusted the tiny gears inside the silver watch. The ticking was no longer just sound, it was a pulse. A heartbeat that seemed to ripple through the floorboards and into the night beyond his workshop. Through the open window, the sea gleamed with the same slow rhythm, as though the waves themselves were obeying the watch's will. He looked toward the horizon. The moon hung unnaturally low, suspended like a silver coin between clouds. Normally, by this hour, it would have begun its gentle descent toward dawn, but tonight, it lingered. The village lay in an unnerving half-light, the air caught between dream and wakefulness. He thought of the dreams in the past weeks since he first wound the watch. People had come to him quietly. The fisherman who had lost his wife said he saw her every night in the long moonlit hours. Walking along the beach, a child who was often restless now slept deeply, her nightmares replaced by visions of flying among stars. Even the most troubled soul seemed soothed, and yet the tides had grown. Strange, the harbor's waterline shifted unpredictably. Fishing boats returned with their nets tangled in seaweed from depths they did not normally reach. Old coral reefs, unseen for decades, had begun to rise near the shore. Nature was speaking. His voice was strained. Elric set the watch down on his workbench. Its face shimmered faintly, reflecting the moonlight that spilled in through the window. He remembered the woman who had brought it to him, a traveler with eyes like midnight, and a voice that seemed to echo with the hush of distant waves. It said only, "It measures more than time. Take care how you wind it." A soft knock came at his door. It was Mirella, the village healer. "You're holding back the dawn," she said without accusation, but with an undercurrent of urgency. He tried to answer, but words caught in his throat. She stepped inside, glancing at the watch. "They're all dreaming still. Even the sick and dying are at peace." But peace bought with imbalance. Her gaze drifted toward the horizon. It would not last. Elric knew she was right. The choice pressed on him like the weight of the moon itself. Keep winding the watch, and he could give the village nights of endless calm, but perhaps at the cost of the sea's rhythm, the harvests, the migrations. Let it run down, and the dawn would return, taking with it the fragile dreams people had come to cherish. His hands hovered over the winding key. Outside, the surf murmured in strange patterns, as if waiting for his decision.